Before we talk about retirement strategies, Roth IRA conversions, tax tactics, investments, and the strategy today that we'll be discussing in depth in this video, I want to ask you something more important that matters most. If the stock market or the economy or your portfolio or investments were to crash or drop significantly the years leading up to your retirement or within the first 3 years of retiring, would your plan still feel aligned? Would your plan still be on course, or would it cause uncertainty? Would it cause added stress and fears and derailment of that plan? When the market becomes volatile, which happens often, and there's lots of unknowns throughout life, does your plan help you feel grounded and aligned and calm, or does it create uncertainty and second guessing? For most individuals and peoples and families that we've helped for over 10 years, guiding them to retire earlier, wealthier, and happier, and we've heard from thousands of others, both early retirement and retirement, it's not just about money or growth alone.
Yeah, it's about that peace of mind, and it's about clarity. It's about removing that added stress and fear and replacing it with awareness and some protections. Today, we are going to walk through one of the most misunderstood areas in financial planning: fixed index annuities. We're going to do this a little bit differently from an unbiased fiduciary perspective, using math, data, visuals, and research. We're going to explain what they are, how they work, the pros and the trade-offs, and when they may or may not belong inside a financial plan. We'll also walk you through real visuals and real examples so you can actually see how this plays out.
Now, this is not about selling you anything at all. As Ashley was saying, it's just unbiased education to get you the facts. Go over the pros, to go over the cons on here, because it's also about understanding stocks, ETFs, and mutual funds and bonds, and equity portfolios, and so much more. Fixed index annuities are also another valuable resource. It can be very beneficial depending on your situation, to at least be aware of, to give you that education, that awareness, and that clarity of choice for your own self, because they can serve a very specific purpose that we ourselves have implemented in a number of people's lives over these 10 years that we still teach about here as well, as a potential tool that could or could not be used. Because with intention, again, we've seen it be valuable, but we want to give you the facts and the education on here today in an unbiased measure. Now, my name is David Lumberg. I'm a flat fee financial planner and tax strategist for over 10 years now, co-founder of Awaken Financial Designs, a double master's degree, certificate in financial planning, and a Marine veteran. And as always, this is educational only, not financial, tax, or legal advice.
And I'm Ashley. I'm co-founder of Awaken Financial Designs. I have my master's degree in business leadership. I am a financial educator and wellness coach, and I help people retire earlier, wealthier, and happier. So this conversation today has been studied for decades, but misunderstood by many. Leading economists, researchers, and Nobel Prize winners have all contributed to how we understand risk. Harry Markowitz shows us the use of importance of diversification. Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize winner researcher in behavioral economics, helps us understand how people actually experience loss and uncertainty. And retirement researchers like Wade Pfau have shown that what happens in early retirement can shape everything that follows. So what we are discussing today sits at the intersection of math, risk, and human behavior.
Now, let us ground this with math and something that's simple but powerful, with the visual coming up on the chart now on here. Again, numbers and math and facts, what we're studying here today. So as we can see it coming on now, this is what we call a break-even chart with your investments or with your portfolio. We've taught this in classes for a number of years now, and we share it with so many other advisors and planners around the country. But essentially on here, we have to say, okay, if my portfolio on the top left over there was down 10%, 20%, let's take 30% as an example, circled in red. We need a 43% rate of return just to break even. Now, up the top there, we got 3, 5, 8, 10, and 12%. So let's just assume on average we got an 8% rate of return. It would take you roughly 4.5 years to break even on that 30% loss, assuming you left your money in there and never took any of the money out. So understanding your break even is very important when you're dealing with this on here. So you just know, hey, if something happens to my portfolio, depending how I'm invested and how am I allocated in there, depending if I have protections or not, if a crash happened, how long would the break even be? What would I need to have happen on there too?
So this is not opinion. This is math and facts. While we can model this inside financial planning and tax software, what we cannot model is how it feels That emotional side of money must be experienced and understood by each individual.
Yeah, because when markets move, you have to ask, do I feel grounded? Do I feel uncertain? Do I have calm or stress? I mean, we are very big on giving math, data, and facts,
Yes.
but also the human element, the emotional element on there, how one feels, and that's very different to every person here as well. But let's get into the next topic on here.
Yeah, so what is the sequence of return and volatility drag, and why does this matter so much? So the sequence of return risk is a danger that the timing of investment losses, particularly early in retirement, can permanently damage a portfolio's ability to sustain withdrawals over time. Even if long-term average returns appear adequate, experiencing significant losses in the early years of retirement while simultaneously withdrawing income can accelerate portfolio depletion in a way that later positive returns cannot fully reverse.
Wow.
So volatility drag is also known as a variance drain. It is the mathematical reality that portfolio volatility reduces actual compounded returns below the simple arithmetic average return because percentage losses require proportionately larger percentage gains to recover. A portfolio that experiences frequent swings in value will compound at a lower rate than its average return suggests.
So as Ashley was just saying on here, the sequence of return risk and that volatility drag, they definitely co-align with that prior visual we showed you on that break-even chart. And more importantly, what does all this mean? Well, of course, when you stop working and you choose to retire, you no longer have money coming in. And you're going to have to now start taking money from somewhere to live on, and you're going to take it from those retirement accounts or that non-qualified brokerage account or from somewhere out there. Well, if you take money from a portfolio or an investment when it is down or has crashed on there, and you're taking money now out of there to live on, it's not going to break even. It's not going to catch back on there, which is why these math experts are saying we need some kind of awareness. We need some protections overall in there to assist with the sequence of return risk, to assist with that volatility drag there as well. And we always begin with a holistic, comprehensive plan of the whole person, of the whole couple or their whole family, which is why, yet again in this area, we are fiduciary flat fee planners. So we don't charge an asset under management base. There's no AUM for us. We want to do what is best for you, and that's why we provide this education. And again, this is just one tool and one tactic that might be beneficial, but we're going to have very many visuals coming up here to show you exactly what they look like and exactly what they can do.
So how should someone think about this without feeling overwhelmed or influenced one way or the other? This is not about fear or stress. It's about that clarity, awareness, and how to have protections or safeguards. And when we step back and ask, what does the math say? What does the structure need? What aligns with your life? So before we show you visuals and illustration examples, let's first explain what a fixed index annuity is. Without understanding, then the visuals would mean little. This is not about replacing your portfolio. It's about designing a portion of your plan to behave differently when markets do not and to create that protection. A fixed index annuity is a contract issued by an insurance company that links interest crediting to the performance of an external market index, a fixed rate, and or mixed allocation options. It's an insurance product, not a security. Its guarantees are backed solely by the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. It typically provides guarantees, protections, and growth potential. It can generally be structured as an IRA, Roth IRA, or non-retirement.
Yes, I mean, at its core, a fixed index annuity, it is an insurance contract. It's not directly invested in the stock market. It is usually structured with three main elements. We usually have our principal protection. We have typically our guaranteed protection on the growth of any, it can be locked in. We have our annual reset on your own anniversary date. And there's different allocation or different investment choices that you can pick from on there. But again, as Ashley was saying, it's an insurance contract, which is why it's so many major brokerage firms that are out there. You won't see that many fixed indexed annuity options for you. Or if you do see some, they're typically cherry picked or very limited by that brokerage firm you are at. So if you do go to your brokerage firm and you are on that website looking for them, if you don't see many or none at all, this is why. This is why it's also so important, in our own opinion, to at least get an unbiased, independent licensed annuity person that can review different companies at different products to get what's best for you and not what they're only captive to do on here. So just be aware of that. Now again, if markets decline, the credit may only be zero. So hey, I have $300,000 invested, markets crash 30%. My worst case, I just get a 0% return that year,
Right.
but I don't lose my money that is in there. Now, why a 0% is never exciting to anybody, I would take a 0% over a negative 10 or a
Yeah,
negative 30%
for sure.
any day as part of my portfolio in there.
Yeah, so as David was saying, these are the three main elements. But remember, certain companies and certain products can vary, so you must be cautious and aware. Now, David, what are the two main types of ways people can get a credited return?
Yeah, so there's a lot of confusion with fixed index annuities, especially that are out there, and a lot of misleading information that happens to well, and I see it all too often that's occurring out there. Sadly, so I'm going to give you the main two to at least be aware of on here. We do have prior videos going more in depth too, but you have what's called a cap and a participation rate, or a par rate for short. A cap typically would say, as an example, let's take the S&P 500. And let's say you have an 8% cap in your given year. So it'll say, hey, between April to April of next year, if the S&P 500 goes higher than 8%, let's say 12%, the most I can get is an 8% return because that is my cap. If it goes to 8%, I get 8. If it goes to 6, I get 6.
Okay.
If it goes to 1, I get 1, but my cap is the 8% on that particular investment. The other way is the participation rate or the par rate. Now this one is very confusing and very misleading. I see it all too often. Well, someone will say you can get a 180% participation rate. You can get a 110% participation rate. You can get a 40% participation rate. What you have to understand is that participation rate, let's take 60%.
Okay.
Let's use the same S&P 500 as before. Let's say that S&P 500 also did 8% in the given year, but you have a participation rate of 60%, which means you get 60% of 8%. So yet again, you get 60% of 8%. If the S&P 500 went up to 10%, your par rate is 60%. You get 60% of 10%. So that is the big two, is the cap and the par rates to be aware of. I mean, the third one is a fixed rate or a guaranteed rate, which you can find for each year in there as well, but be cautious of the cap and the par rates.
So it's important to understand the free withdrawals and the limits on the fixed index annuities. David, can you explain this as well?
Yes, we have an image coming up here on the screen now. Now this is again from two major annuity companies that are out there. And again, education only, not direct financial legal advice. Now, free surrenders and withdrawals that occur. What people have to understand is that the first year, typically, you're not allowed to take any of your money out, because if you take any money out of that contract the first year, they are going to charge you a fee for doing so. Now that fee can vary. It could be 5% fee, could be a 10% fee. It does vary, but check the contract for that. However, majority of companies will say after one whole year, your money's been in here, you're typically allowed 10% of that account value. So if I had $100,000 in the account after one whole year, 10% of that account value is $10,000. So I could take out $10,000 after 1 year. There's no fees, of course, by the annuity contract. However, like any IRA account, taxes still would apply. Same with the Roth IRA or that non-qualified account. The tax type won't change, just simply saying the fees by the actual annuity company are on there. So in this case on here, you can see both companies, in this case, say, hey, after one whole year, you can take out 10% of the contract value, and there's no fees by the company. If you wanted more than 10%, let's say 15%, well, the first 10%, there is no fee, but anything over 10%, let's say the extra 5, they would have a fee. Now again, that could be 4%, it could be 5% fee for the amount over that, but you want to check the contract for that. So be aware of your free withdrawals, be aware of the percentages, and be aware of how that works, because I've seen this be too costly for too many people that I've seen being misleading or see got missold to, or people we have met that are very upset about annuities, and it's typically about something like this that they did not fully understand themselves. That's why it's all about awareness and giving you that as well.
Yeah, and so honestly, you know, when you think about this, the 10% withdrawal fee, you know, you really want to be cautious in that you don't need this money in that period.
Now let's get to some visuals here and some real examples where I'll show you how these work, what they're like.
Yeah, so we'll now show you several visuals and illustrations, show you guarantees versus projections, and no bonuses versus bonuses, and real illustration comparisons.
Now, this is where math and data really show you how this works with the fixed index annuities on these 3 different types we're going to be showing you here as well. And again, many structures, many types out there. There's just 3 basic ones to be aware of overall for awareness. So let's go ahead here on your screen. We have the first one coming up here regarding bonuses. Now, just to be aware of on here, some companies out there will offer you a bonus. Now, depending on the annuity you have, 5-year, 7-year, or a 10-year term are pretty common. This case, I'm going to show you 5 years. We work with a lot of 5-year contracts ourselves on here, so
Yeah.
it shows a lot on there. But with a 5-year, as an example, always look at the guaranteed. Green box on top. Any illustration, they're going to have a guaranteed page and a non-guaranteed page. Always find both pages on there. Now, this company on here, they will go ahead and they'll say, well, if you did your 5 years with us overall and no growth ever happened in the stock market, you would put in your $250,000 premium,
Okay.
orange box. You're guaranteed a 9.50% bonus. That is guaranteed to be on there.
Okay.
You can see at the end of 5 years, you get that $23,750. When the 5 years has ended, the contract's done, you would have a total value now of $273,750 because the bonus was guaranteed. This is your worst case scenario, which is why index growth is showing you 0% every year. Because it's saying, hey, if a crash in the market happened every single year, your worst case is 0%, but you keep the bonus.
You keep the bonus. Okay.
Now, the one below here is a 7-year annuity. The 7-year one does have a guaranteed 12.50% bonus, so 12.5% bonus. You can see again on here, put in $250,000. You can see that we have a credit of $31,250. And we can see at the end of 7 years, if the markets were negative every single year, your worst case is 0% return, you would leave with $281,250. Now again, keep in mind, it's not always about having a bonus, but you want to be aware of, is there a bonus option? How can the bonus help me? What are the pros and cons? Sometimes a higher bonus could mean a lower cap or a lower par rate.
Right.
Sometimes having a guaranteed bonus, depending on your feelings towards the market, could be better all. I mean, oftentimes, we ourselves, again, our own opinions, we typically like to look at the bonus ones on there because the non-bonus ones usually will win out if there's never a crash and if
Yeah,
the
I
max
was gonna
cap
say.
is reached every single year. But if the max cap is not reached every single year, or there is one down year, then oftentimes the bonus one will outwin the non-bonus one. But again, you have to use math and data and look at the illustration and look at the contracts as well. Now, the next one coming up here on the screen, this is a fixed index annuity with no bonuses. So there's no bonus in these ones. Now, this is also showing you, again, the guaranteed up top, no bonus at all. We could see on here that the credit interest rate is 0% every year. That's your worst case scenario. You put in $250,000. We'll say the market's crashed every single year for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, you get back your $250,000. Now below here in red, non-guaranteed. Yet again, non-guaranteed projected estimates with no bonus on here. Now this one, 5 years well, you can see we put in $250,000 in premium on here. However, in the credited interest rate column, we could see 6.2%, 12.62%, and then the third year in red, 0%. And that one in red on there, the market's crashed. Maybe down negative 10%,
Okay.
maybe down negative 30%, but your worst case is you get a 0%.
like what you said.
However, to the far right over here, we see we locked in our growth of the gains. So not only did we start with $250,000, our money had grew to $299,008.
Oh, wow, okay.
The markets crashed. We kept all those gains
Kept
in
all of
addition in the fixed indexed annuity. Then we can go back to here. The markets went up and up again. So at the end of all the years, our portfolio grew to an estimation of $461,304, but we had protections that were in place
Right.
inside of this annuity here as well. Now again, this one had no bonuses on here. This one's showing you two different options, but you always want to look at the guarantees, always see the guarantees, and always look at the hypothetical or estimates as well, so you're aware of what can and cannot happen for best pros and cons. And again, this could be IRA, a Roth IRA, or it could be that non-qualified type of account that it can occur into on here. Ashley, what are kind of your thoughts so far on this?
So really, like when I'm looking at the big picture here, this is about protections and growth. So if you are somebody that, let's say, doesn't like their money locked up for a long term, or don't care about the protections and growth and have allocations randomly, then this may not be for you.
Yeah, when one of the cons or negatives to a fixed index annuity is liquidity, as Ashley was saying on here, right? And that's why oftentimes we've told many people
Yeah.
no to doing an annuity over the years. Now, could they have done one with someone else? Absolutely, but we ethically feel like it's not best for people when there's a liquidity issue.
Right.
Let's take, for example, they only have $300,000 in retirement. why would they want to put away $150,000 or $100,000 locked away in an annuity, even on a 5-year level?
Yeah.
And we know, hey, you could take out 10% after year 1 only, but if they need that money to live on, that's going to cause them issues in the future. So for us, it's always about how much money do we have to invest?
Right.
What is the purpose of that money? What are your plans this year, 5 years, 10 years? Big vacations, big things
That's
you're
why we
buying
always
on there.
ask those
We look at it
questions.
also on a percentage level, not just dollar percentage as well, because liquidity factors is a huge issue in this as well. And then the other one typically is, it's not understanding the caps and par rates on here, right? People have to understand these are not meant to beat stocks. These are not meant to get
And that is
15%
a-
returns. They're not meant for 20% returns on here, right? Oftentimes, depending on how a fixed index annuity is structured and how it's created on there, you might be averaging anywhere from, say, 7% to a 10% potential rate of return each year potentially on there. So again, it's a tactical component that could be on there.
Right.
Could also be used in addition with bonds or in lieu of bonds, which
Just like
again, there's
another
lots of
tool.
math
Yeah.
studies out there as well discussing this too.
Yeah, we have discussed the numbers and math, but there is equally important side of the human element to include the emotions and behavior.
Now, before we go into the behavior side, one more visual chart I want to show you on here regarding fixed index annuities. And a prior video goes in depth on this, but just kind of in short overall, I know there's lots of colors on here, looks like crayons too. In short, we kind of got, the one A is protected up top, B, not protected in the bottom on here overall. We're saying, hey, let's say year 3, there was a crash that occurred in the markets overall. That crash that does occur in the market year 3 on A versus the crash that occurs year B on the unprotected on there. After the end of 5 years, we could see A that had some protections ends with $278,000. B that
yeah.
had no protections ends with $240,000 on here overall. So again, it's just math and data is what we have
Right.
to utilize depending on the situation, which is why we always want to show people. Now again, if the markets were never to crash and that was your own strong personal belief and you really believe that, that's your own justice call on there and maybe not doing annuities best for you. But if there is one crash that does occur, let's say 20 or 30%, or if you don't want to deal with a potential crash occurring on a part of your portfolio, then maybe looking into a fixed index annuity as one tactical component could be beneficial because of this. Now, Ashley, I know you want to discuss it again on here, the behavioral,
Yes,
emotional side,
yes.
which is very valuable as well,
Yes.
which so many advisors don't talk about. People don't talk about the psychology of money,
Yeah.
the behavioral psychology of finances, the
Yes.
stress of it. Can you kind of get into that some more here?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you have to think about it this way. Like, you've worked your whole entire life and now you're finally in retirement. And the behavioral finance connection, the Nobel Prize winning researcher Daniel Kahneman and his colleagues Amos Tversky, they established the prospect theory that humans truly do feel that pain of financial loss because you've worked your whole entire life, right? And you're like, approximately twice as intensely as they feel the pleasure of an equivalent gain. The symmetry means that market volatility and portfolio declines do not just create the mathematical setbacks, but they create disproportionate emotional and psychological burden that can affect decision making, physical health, and overall well-being. Long-running research from the Dalbar has shown that this emotional response to market volatility frequently leads investors to make reactive decisions, selling during downturns, moving to cash, or abandoning long-term plans that produce that real financial harm over time.
Yeah, so these are by Nobel Prize winners. These are proven theories.
Yeah.
These are also theories that have been enforced by psychologists, economists, and leading minds over so many years as well that really kind of talks about emotion, right?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, when you think about it, like that stress creates that uncertainty and you freak out. But when you really have that clarity to make those sound decisions, you feel more peace about it.
Now, Ashley, let's talk about stress and wealth. I mean, here at our firm, we are very big on the stress factor,
Absolutely.
which is why we incorporate meditation, we incorporate breath work, we incorporate a lot of holistic wellness
Mindful
activities
living.
to help out with the stress especially.
Yeah.
But Ashley, can you go more into stress for us and how that really impacts the wealth and financial dynamic?
Yeah, absolutely. So financial stress is one of the most well-documented sources of chronic stress in adults. The American Psychological Association has conducted annual Stress in America surveys for many years and has consistently found out that money and finances rank among the top contributors of stress for Americans across all income levels and age groups. So research has truly established a clear connection between financial uncertainty and elevated cortisol levels, which is the primary stress hormone in the human body. Prolonged elevated cortisol is associated with a range of negative health outcomes, including disruptive sleep, weakened immune function, elevated blood pressure, and increased risk of cardiovascular disease. A study that was published in the journal Social Science and Medicine found that financial stress is independently associated with poor self-reported health outcomes, separate from the actual financial conditions themselves. In other words, anxiety about money can cause health harm even when the financial situation itself is objectively manageable.
And that's why we're so big on nervous system regulation. We're so big on a mind-body-soul connection with our comprehensive planning on here overall too, because you cannot ignore the stress impacts. You cannot ignore the effects that it has as well. So many documentaries that are out there, which is why we're so big in our own planning process on having different types of protections, on having different components of protection. Now, that may or may not be a fixed index annuity, but a fixed index annuity can be one potential product or tool that could cause protection on there, in addition to cash alternatives, in addition to bonds, in addition to maybe defensive portfolio stock structures out there. But if you're looking for guarantees and protections, a fixed index is one part that can help lower the stress on here, as Ashley was discovering on here too. Ashley, what else about emotions and the stress and behavior that you want to say that we kind of discuss and how we do our classes?
Yeah, so we actually, like David was saying, I mean, when you think about it, finances is stressful, as we've shown. But really, when you integrate that mindful living, the meditation, breath work, let's say yoga, all of that to really help you slow down and just take that moment and that pause to make those sound decisions, you're not acting out of fear, but you're acting out of clarity.
No, that's perfect. Now, Ashley, let's go over the early retirement and people that are young and how this could work for them as well.
Yeah, so people always say fixed annuities are, right, for those older or for those over the age of 60. And is that really true?
Yeah, it's just such a common thing now that there's more education now is, but people would always say the word annuity. They think, man, that's for my grandpa and grandma, right? That's for someone 60 years or older on there, right? And they also always think of income annuity, which is very different than an index annuity as well on here.
Yeah, that's
Now, we also believe here that, right, a fixed indexed annuity can absolutely help you out with early retirement because it's giving you those protections. It's giving you those guarantees. It's helping with the IRA, that Roth IRA, that non-qualified account, so that if you do have money invested in the stock market, in individual stocks or in ETFs that can have that larger growth potential, but have a lot of loss on theirs too, maybe you want to retire in 5 years. Maybe you want a 7-year plan on there. But if that big crash happens, 30% on there, that can derail everything.
Right.
But if you can have a tactical component or a percentage of your investments that can have some protections and guarantees, when that crash happens, it might cause a little dent or a small bump, but maybe an extra 6 months or a year in your plan, but it's not going to destroy the early retirement plan. So even if you are in your 40s, even if you're in your early 50s on there, I would still highly consider becoming educationally aware of the facts and data on what a fixed index annuity is and how it may or may not help you in your own early retirement.
Yeah, and there's really like no harm, no foul really in doing so, you know, because it is about the protections and just seeing what you have available. So throughout this video, we've provided unbiased education, visuals on fixed index annuities to give you awareness and clarity. And this has allowed you to truly understand another tool and resource that could be used. Asking yourself if my financial plan built only for growth and hopes and losses never occur, or is it designed to support how I want to feel in life as well? Remember that stress and fear of uncertainty is unhealthy inside the body, and easing that with some protections leads to more peace.
Yeah, remember, fixed index annuities are a tactical resource or component. It's supposed to give you education and awareness and an unbiased opinion overall. That way you're aware of what may or may not be beneficial for your own self and your own life, because financial planning to us is not just about the highest growth. It's about having clarity, having peace of mind, and having some protections in there in conjunction with everything else as well. Ashley, what can they do next year?
Yeah, so if you would like to explore this further, there are 2 ways to begin. So if you prefer something you can move through at your own pace, we have created a free Awaken Wealth and Life Alignment Guide that's on our website, awakenfinancialdesigns.com. And if you would like to see how this applies in real life scenarios, you can also watch several educational videos and real case studies here on our YouTube channel. And the third option is always you can schedule a free call too.
Now, we are headquartered here in North Carolina. We work virtually in a number of states like Arizona, more states coming here as well. So virtual firm we are on here. We always have in-person classes coming up.
Yes.
Locally here in the Cary, North Carolina area, we have some other classes coming up. But as always, this is educational only, not financial, tax, or legal advice. And reminder, guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.